Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to try to share on the screen. If I can't share on the screen, at least I sent it to people who are here via the Zoom. I sent it to you on your phones via WhatsApp, and the people who are here at Matan have the text. But before we get to that, I want to go back to something that we did about like a little overview of what we did before. We said that we're discussing this question of how HaRav Kook treats heresy. We're going to discuss it in three stages. Stage one is the philosophical stage. What do we know about emunah? And that we've been doing for a few sessions, and we're going to complete that today. And then we're going to move on the next time we meet, which will be in a while because we're going away for 2 weeks, and then when we come back, it's close to Rosh Hashanah, and we'll have to. I think what I'm going to do for Rosh Hashanah is dedicate the English shiur maybe a week before Rosh Hashanah to lessons that we can take from this series to our process of tshuva. Maybe get a broader group to come for a one-time shiur. We'll see if that will succeed. I might get the same group of people and no chidushim, but maybe I'll try and think how to make it attractive for a broader group of people. But in any case, afterwards, Tuesday is Rosh Hashanah, and the next Tuesday is Yom Kippur, and the next Tuesday, not Yom Kippur, I think it's Erev Yom Kippur, and the next Tuesday is Sukkot, and the next Tuesday is Simchat Torah, and the next Tuesday is my niece's bat mitzvah. So my great niece's bat mitzvah, my sister's granddaughter. So it'll take a while till we renew the shiurim somewhere in the month of Cheshvan. But for now, we're going to end. We're going to not complete because it's not complete. But we're going to go. What we're going to do, we're going to complete what we're doing about the philosophical question, and then when we meet again, we're going to start asking ourselves questions. What does this mean about what is emunah? What is faith? What is heresy? What is kfirah? And so on. And how does this help us in our dealing with heresy in our times? What we did in the first shiurim is we discussed how difficult it is to know anything about God. We don't really know anything about Hashem. We quoted the Zohar that says, Leit machshavat fisa b'klal. Really, we don't understand anything about God. And we have to understand that we don't understand and accept that God is such greatness. And Adirabah, it makes it stronger. We are worshiping something that is so great beyond our understanding, and not to make God small, and not to think of God as a king who oppresses us or things like that, because that ruins our the way that we worship Hashem. It just makes it something that is just a crude use of power, and it's just violent, and we don't want that to be our worship of Hashem, our avodat Hashem. We discussed twice a very important piece by HaRav Kook, which is called Yisurim Memarkim, how the difficulties and the pain cleanses our emunah, because it's very difficult for us. We want to believe in God, but we can't know what God is. So Rav Kook says we have to believe in something that's greater than our understanding. The concept of belief of emunah is that we are longing for something which is our source. We want to know where we come from. We want to know from where our creation comes, and that is our longing for God. And when we say Elohim, what we are actually saying is not something that we know what it is, but something that we are longing for. We are expressing this longing in our prayers and our words when we say Elohim. And if we think that we know what God is, it's a form of creating an idol, even if we don't physically build an idol and so on. But HaRav Kook says, and this is a very important point, that when emunah goes through trials, goes through difficulties, we often think of it as something very bad, very negative, because our structure of emunah is falling apart. And says HaRav Kook, look at the bright side of it. There are all kinds of things that are not proper, are not good, are not right, that are dirty, that have clung onto emunah, and we are cleaning the emunah from all of these negative things that have stuck onto it. So at the end of the process, emunah will be in a more clear form, on a higher form, more spiritual, more abstract, even though we have to worship a God which is abstract for us and not something tangible, but that's proper. And emunah is growing, it's being cleansed. And that's why it's called Yisurim Memarkim. The pain is cleansing because it's cleaning emunah. So those people who have questions and criticism of emunah, we shouldn't only look at them in a negative way, as you don't have emunah, you're being a heretic, but as people who potentially are helping all of us together bring emunah to a higher level. Because emunah was in the world where people were very very simple. They weren't learned. And in today's enlightened and learned world, to have that same childish emunah of the past is not good, is not healthy, is not positive, is not strong, is not lofty. And they are helping us, they're forcing us to purify our emunah. That's the positive side of the process. This is a summary of the things we've seen before. So today we're going to continue a little bit in this direction. And then next time we meet and continue, we're going to get more into understanding how this influences our worship of Hashem, how this becomes relevant for us to treat ourselves and to treat other people who speak or understand themselves or define themselves as not having emunah. But let's try again to share. Let's see if this succeeds. Here, this one I want. Okay, if you can read it, that's good. I hope for people seeing the recording, they can be helped by this. Those who are here have it on paper, and those who are here on the Zoom, I've sent you it by WhatsApp. It's from this book. This book called The Torah of Tomorrow, One Song, Teachings of Rabbi, over here, Teachings of Rabbi Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, in Hebrew and English, translated by Rachel Tova Ebner. Rachel Tova Ebner is the mother of the member of Kinol David, Moshe Ebner. And Moshe knew in the past that I was looking for paragraphs of HaRav Kook in English, so when his mother put out this book recently, he gave me, thank you Moshe, a copy of the book, and I'm reading from the book, and the copies and the screen sharing is from the second quote that she brings in this book. So if you see number 2 at the top of the page, it's not page 2, it's quote number 2, which she translated into English. So let's read it together. In matters of holiness and faith, doing away with contents that have become dryly routine according to their prior explanation causes beneficial newness in the world. Okay, so there are issues of holiness and faith that have become dryly routine. We've gotten used to a certain form of emunah, of faith. And it's dry, it's routine, it doesn't have real spirit, it doesn't have strength, it's not thriving, it's dry and routine. And it's an explanation that existed in the past, a prior explanation. So, says HaRav Kook, when we do away with these dry and routine contents, we are causing beneficial newness in the world. We are enabling a new, deeper, livelier understanding of emunah to be born in the world. It's beneficial. It's bringing a newness from the word new, a newness, a chidush of emunah in the world. And through this process, the content of holiness and clarity of God knowing become activated full force. This process is going to activate a stronger force of clarity of God knowing, of being close to God, of understanding, not understanding, but of having a connection with Hashem. Now, this happens through 2 characteristics in the nature of change, which comes about through negation, which is like the rotting of a seed's cover that precedes the seed's growth into new fruitfulness, which yields abundant harvests. Now, Rav Kook compares to the process of a seed that we plant in the ground. The seed, the cover comes off, and therefore the seed changes, it evolves, it falls apart in some sense, but enables something new to grow. It becomes fruitful, it yields abundant harvest, but it goes through a process of negation, of canceling its previous form and being born into a new form. And that, says HaRav Kook, has two characteristics that bring a new force to the process of emunah. One characteristic is that the Ra liberates the life force, which is hidden in the compressed pinpoint of the tiny volume of the seed. And then the force emerges in all its freedom and gives birth to glorious fruitfulness. Again, going back to the parable of the seed has life force in it, but it's locked in. And only by rotting, the life force of the seed is liberated. And then it emerges in its freedom, and something grows, and it's hidden underneath the ground, and suddenly something sprouts from it, and it grows above the ground, and it becomes large, and it's very fruitful, it's glorious. So a life force, a strong life force, is being born from the rotting of this seed. And the second characteristic change is that the prior dissolution of the outer form yields unblocked space for the innovation of a new, much improved form, with no need to suffer from the deficiencies that built up the old form. And then there only remains the influence of the higher aspects of the first form, which are passed on as an inheritance for all generations. Meaning, in emunah, as we've said all along, we don't really understand exactly what is God. So it has a certain characteristic, it has a certain understanding, a certain form. We create for ourselves a certain form of what we think of God. As HaRav Kook taught us, if you think that is God, what I think that is God, that's a form of idol worship. You're building a spiritual kind of idol, which is Avodah Zarah, spiritual form of Avodah Zarah. But if we understand that we need this construction for ourselves to be able to worship God, then it's okay. We understand it's an idea, it's a connection, it's a bridge to help us come closer to Hashem, but it's not really what Hashem is. Okay, then it's okay. But sometimes that form has connected to it all kinds of deficiencies. It was good when I was a child. If I stay with that childish understanding, I've given this parable in the past. If I have an understanding of what God is when I'm 5 or when I'm 8 or when I'm 10, and I have the same understanding of God when I'm 20 or 30, then it's a very deficient understanding of God. It keeps me in a childish form of religion, of religious belief, of Avodat Hashem, of worshiping of God. And that's not good. So I need for that old form, which is not very good, it's deficient. I need for that to be able to fall away so that I can create a new form which is higher and doesn't have those limitations of the deficient form. Once again, I'm going to read this. The second characteristic of change is that the prior dissolution of the outer form yields unblocked space for the innovation of a new, much improved form. If I believe as a child that God is up there in the sky, he's very big, he sees me, he's very threatening, and he looks down on me, and if I do what he says, he's going to give me a candy, like the old man in shul. And if I don't do what he says, he's going to punish me. And I have that belief when I'm 15 or 20 or 25, then I can't grow out of it. It's scary. I'm told I'm not allowed to renew my thinking. I'm not allowed to think of it in a new way. It's blasphemy. It's heresy if I think that's not true. If I ask a question, my teachers put me down and scold me for not believing in the true belief of Judaism. So it keeps me down. It blocks my ability to grow in emunah. If that happens, there's going to be a 20 or 25-year-old or 15-year-old person who's going to say this is nonsense. And you know what? He's right. Because for a 5-year-old, it's good. For a 20 or 15-year-old, it's not good. It's nonsense. He needs to grow to enable a new, higher form of emunah to develop within himself. Like the seed that rotted and doesn't exist in its previous form, but now becomes fruitful and grows a whole, whatever it is that it's growing, a whole fruit, it becomes fruitful. So when this old form falls away, then we remain with a higher aspect, the higher aspects of the first form, those aspects of, yes, there is a God, yes, he does control the world, Those are the higher aspects of that previous form of emunah, and now we can cling to the important aspects of emunah without the childish form of it that we had before. So these are the two characteristics of the nature of change about faith. One is that something old falling away frees a very powerful life force of fruitfulness for emunah. The other is that the lesser form, the lower form, falls away and enables us to take from it those aspects that are positive and to use them in a higher form. At the bottom of the page, and something similar happens with the light of holiness, because for the sake of transplanting the vineyard of the house of Israel into the land.
You have to move it up, Rabbi, you have to move it up.
No, it's right there. It's at the
Oh,
end.
thank you.
See it?
Yeah.
Over here at the bottom of the page. Okay?
Thank you.
And something similar happens. HaRav Kook is saying now we are transplanting not our understanding of emunah, we're transplanting Am Yisrael from Galut back to Eretz Yisrael. We are transplanting the vineyard of the house of Israel into the land of Israel. The vineyard has been in Galut for so long. We are now we're transplanting the vineyard of the house of Israel. We're transplanting Am Yisrael into the land of Israel. And that is not just a physical change, it demands a spiritual change. So says HaRav Kook, for the sake of transplanting the vineyard of the house of Israel into the land of Israel, in a way that the light of true prophecy returns as a special property of the nation, you understand what he's striving for? What we are striving for is to renew prophecy, to grow spiritually, to be able to renew prophecy, so that the light of prophecy will return as a property of the nation and is necessary for the customary values in their formal form. Sorry, now I have to move to the new page. Let's try again. There it is. Yes. As they have been kept since the interruption of prophecy, to be wiped out by the power of the outrageous behavior of the era of the footsteps of the Mashiach. So the rabbis have said long ago, Be'ikvita de Meshicha, chutzpah yaski. At the time of Mashiach, chutzpah will grow. There will be something very negative. Rav Kook calls it here outrageous. In Hebrew, it's chutzpah. The word for outrageous, this is her choice of an English word for the word chutzpah. Chutzpah is being obnoxious. It's not being respectful. So people treat emunah disrespectfully. They have questions. I don't have to study this from a book. I'm a teacher. I see this. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they have chutzpah. And when they have a question in emunah, they throw it out. They don't try to make it a little more delicate, a little more respectful. They say, "Ma ze shtuyot haele?" It's chutzpah. It's outrageous. But what they're really expressing is that the form of emunah that they've been taught until now doesn't work anymore. And I can listen to that and say, "Shut up! You're causing heresy, or you're going to be a heretic. Don't ask questions." Or I can say, "Good question. Let's ask it in a more respectful way. Let's ask it without the chutzpah." But what HaRav Kook is saying, that the chutzpah has a positive aspect. The chutzpah is the rotting of the seed of the previous form of emunah, which will enable a higher form of emunah to be revealed. Again, I'm reading from the top of this page. As they have been kept since the interruption of prophecy, HaRav Kook says for Am Yisrael to have prophecy, we need a higher form of emunah. You don't have emunah, which is just very rigid. God is strong and he tells you to do things. And if you don't do them, you're going to be punished. That's not good for prophecy. Prophecy has to come from a spiritual growth, from a spiritual closeness, clinging spiritually onto something spiritual which is so great like God. It doesn't come from just accepting a yoke through a threat that if you don't follow the instructions, you're going to be punished. We need a higher form of emunah to be able to renew prophecy. It has to be wiped out by the power of outrageous behavior, because we who accept the yoke of God, we're afraid to go and wipe it out. We're very careful. Maybe we think it's not good and we need, but don't be too powerful about it. It's dangerous. It might cause heresy. It might cause people not to keep halacha. So we're very careful. Come along some other people with this outrageous behavior called in Hebrew chutzpah, or in Yiddish chutzpah, and they throw it out. And they wipe out the previous form of emunah. And says HaRav Kook, this is something that happens in the era of the footsteps of the Mashiach, because this is preparation for a higher form of emunah to be born, which will enable us to renew prophecy. And from the energy of this decomposition of old outer forms that HaRav Kook discussed before, when the seed rots, it decomposes, and a powerful energy is like a kind of bursts out from the decomposing seed, an energy. There will emerge a new light, shining with overflowing brilliance, as pure as heaven itself. And now he quotes parts of two psukim from Yeshayahu. The psukim are, one pasuk in Hebrew is, "V'alchu goyim leorechu melachim lenoga zarchech." Nations will walk toward your light, and kings toward the brilliance of your dawning. It will bring such a light to the faith of Am Yisrael that other nations will want this light. And also another pasuk that says that Am Yisrael will have a new name. V'lach yikareh shem chadash asher pi Hashem yikovenu. You will be called by a new name which God's mouth will designate. Because Am Yisrael will be a source of such bright light in the world that other nations will want that light. And Am Yisrael will get a new name. We'll be treated differently by the nations of the world because of this new light that will emerge from Am Yisrael. And the potential is great. The potential is the renewal of prophecy. So on the one hand, I would say this paragraph gives us tremendous hope. The hope is the firm belief of HaRav Kook, his understanding of the crisis of emunah in today's world, is that it's like a seed rotting and an energy exploding, bursting out of that decomposition of the seed that's going to bring something new. It's going to be fruitful and bring a new harvest. It's going to bring a new, abundant harvest into the world. And it's going to set aside a certain form of emunah that was right for Galut, for Am Yisrael and the Galut, and it's going to return us to a much more powerful spiritual form of emunah that enables us to bring back to the world the ability of prophecy, and it'll be a great light to the world, and Am Yisrael will be a light unto the nations, and so on. So this is a very positive, hopeful way of looking at the challenge of emunah in today's world. It's a long process. We are 90 years this coming week, 90 years from the passing of HaRav Kook, and the light has not yet been revealed enough. Maybe we need to help it move along. Maybe we should be studying this more and teaching it more. But in any case, his optimism, his hopeful or positive way of looking at it is still there. On the other hand, I have to say, it's even more powerful in the scary side of it than what we studied before. Because before, what we studied in the part that we studied, Yisurim Memarkim, the pain purifies or cleanses, we studied that the questions and the heresy about emunah is like something that's cleaning away all kinds of mistakes and dirt that has clung, that has stuck onto the more pure, clean form of emunah. So we're not throwing away emunah, we're cleaning it from things that have stuck to it. And here HaRav Kook is saying something which I think is more powerful. It's going to have to go through a process like a seed. It has to decompose, and then it will reveal a powerful energy and a beautiful, much more, a great light of emunah that we couldn't have perceived before. So it's powerful, and powerful is also hopeful, and powerful is also scary. And this is what he says in this paragraph. Etai.
I tried to be not too outrageous in my question.
Please speak freely, so if it's outrageous, it comes out, so it will be a powerful force.
Process to explain about thinking we have, but what I still don't understand is what is the higher form of emunah? It doesn't explain it here, and I have the impression that if we explain it, it will be another form of heresy, because if we try to explain, it will be too narrow and.
In one sense, it will always be a stage, and there will be another stage, and there will be another stage. And, like I said, if you reach 15, 20, 25, and you have the same form of emunah that you had when you were a child, that's not good. So if you have chutzpah, and you take apart, you decompose that form of emunah, that it has positive potential that you will grow to a higher form of emunah. But does that mean that when you're 45, you should have the same form of emunah as the one you had when you went to yeshiva at age 18 or 20 and studied, or went to university and you thought about these theological questions, and then you got married and had children and you have to put food on the table and you don't have time to think about these questions anymore. So theoretically, it should be happening again in your midlife crisis of 40. And then again, when you're 50 something and so on, you should always be growing. Yes, I think that's true. And it's also true on a generational level. HaRav Kook is talking about the generation of the end of Galut and being reborn in a new form in Eretz Yisrael. And when Medinat Yisrael was established, there were 600,000 Jews here. Now there are close to 8 million. That's a different form of Judaism. How strong should we be now? What are the challenges? What is the chutzpah of our time? I think it's an ongoing question, yes. But I think that part of what's happening is that not enough people are listening. This is my analysis. It's scary. It's hard to understand. You have to go through a stage of, in Yiddish, nishtahin, nishtahel. You're not here and not there. Meaning, you're climbing up a ladder. You go from rung to rung, right? There's a stage where your foot is not on the previous level you were at, and it has not yet reached the next level. So you're like in a how do you say a
Limbo.
yeah, what is it called?
Limbo,
You're in
What?
limbo.
limbo.
Yeah. But I mean like a seret mitzuya, a cartoon, right? Like a cartoon, you're hanging in midair. Like I've said this before. I always love the example. Bugs Bunny runs off the cliff, suddenly reaches thin air and runs back, right? So it's like you're at that stage. So there are in Sifrei Chasidut, and HaRav Kook also says there's like what the Baal HaTanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman Miladi, who created Chabad, the first Rebbe who created Chabad. He takes the pasuk Chanoch lanar al pi darko, gam ki yazkin lo yasur mimena. Literally in English, educate a young person in a way that will be good for him, so that when he grows old, he will stay with that emunah, with that education. And he asks the question, what you mean he should stay a child all his life? Teach him as a child, and that's what he should stay with until he grows old? And he says, no, of course you're supposed to grow all the time. But it's good that you have a childhood education of emunah, that's like you fall back to that when you're hanging in thin air and your leg has left one level and has not yet reached the next level. You have that basis. But it's scary. And people lose emunah. And people stop keeping mitzvot. So it's scary and it's dangerous. And therefore, Jews who are faithful to Torah and emunah and keeping halacha, they push it off. They don't like to do it. And they don't study it. It's very complicated. It's complex. It's deep. How many people can understand it? How do we take the depth of it and bring it to a point, HaRav Kook discusses this as well, that it can be something that the regular people, not people who have time to sit in yeshiva or study philosophy for decades, but the regular people who go about their way of life, their life, and they have to have some form of emunah that they can hold on to. How do we bring the higher form of emunah to a place that the public, that the general public, that the nation can grow from? I believe there are not enough people working on this. That if there were more Talmidei Chachamim, who were devoted, dedicated to Torah, to studying Torah and teaching Torah, and they would not only study Halakha, which has its own importance in Am Yisrael, but they would also dedicate more time to studying Emunah and to creating tools to connect this to the people, then we would be at a more forward stage in these processes. And I do believe that in the Tzionut Hadatit, there are some people who do that more than in other places, but I'm sorry that I don't see enough of it. But it's very complicated and very challenging. Yes.
So basically, excuse me,
1 second, please. Yes.
Stage to different kind of people.
Yeah.
I
agree. I agree. It's difficult. Yeah. I feel that I have a little share in it, but it's so much more that needs to be done. Tova, you wanted to say something?
yes, that basically, if I understand correctly, is emunah it's not something that can be taught. It's something that a person can reach somehow. It's not very clear. How can a person get to emunah, which is something that is very lofty? It's not something concrete. It's
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do, meaning it has certain levels and stages. It's not right for everyone, not everyone on the same level. But for example, to teach that your questions, you chutzpahnik, if you just ask the questions in a more respectful way, it's also language, it's also an
right.
attitude. Are you arrogant and saying, I know best, you guys, my teachers who are older than me, decades older than me, enough with your shtuyot. That's not humble. Besides being chutzpahnik, and it's also not being humble. If I can teach a student to ask the question in a humble way and to be able to open up to the option that you're right, we don't know God. We are not going to understand what God is. And if you think that you know God, you are creating a certain spiritual form of an idol, of avodah zarah, of idol worshiping. And what you're saying is, I'm longing to know who created the world. I'm longing to know who created me. What is my source? And that
Right.
emunah is a form of longing and not a form of construction of this is God. And if you do make a form for yourself, a spiritual construction of what God is merciful, God has providence, is overseeing the world and things like that. God is powerful, omnipotent. You say all kinds of things about God, and you understand that these are tools for me to connect to God and not God himself. So hopefully I'm teaching someone something, and hopefully someone can grow in their emunah. You're right. Basof emunah is not something that I can say it's like, it's not like, I'll say the following. When you're a very young child, you don't know the table of what do you call it? Of like numbers, like from 1 to 100, to add and to subtract and to do luach hakefil. 3 times 8 is 24 and so on. And in first grade, you're not used to it. You're starting to train to practice answering those questions. When you're in 3rd or 4th or 5th grade, you should have control of it easily to 100, no problem, right? We don't need, amongst those present here today, we don't need to check, do we know how much is 4 times 6? It's easy, okay? There are things in life that you can study. At an early stage, they're difficult. At a more advanced stage, you know it, you got it. And when that doesn't happen in emunah. It's not that when you're 10 or 15, it's difficult. But when you're 20, you've solved it. No, that doesn't work. And emunah is always difficult, yes. At the same time, I do think that there is potential for teaching certain things, at least for teaching what mistakes we can make in emunah. If we teach those mistakes, don't make those mistakes, don't become idol worshippers, then we can at least clean emunah from some of those negative things that have stuck to it over the generations. And maybe we can, in a positive way, teach stages of how we can grow in our emunah. I agree with you, Tova, it's not something tangible that you can totally pass on to someone else. But on the other hand, I also think there is a possibility to help people move, to teach and give people tools to move along and move forward and move upwards in their emunah. Okay?
Thank you.
Michael and then Eliezer, yes.
So trying to get a little bit of clarity, because this is
Yes, it is very abstract.
not easy language. Number one, am I interpreting correctly that he sees a period coming when we will have prophecy back among the people of Israel?
That's an easy answer. Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Not only that, this is his vision of what we're trying to achieve.
Well, that's the scariest thing that you've brought up then today.
Who's he?
Of Cook, of Cook.
Of Cook. He talks about
Well, the
all
prophets
the-
prophesied, is that the right pronunciation? The prophets prophesied that
Yes.
there would be a renewal of prophecy in the future.
Yes,
Okay.
So that's not just HaRav Kook, it's just saying that
Prophesied.
this is part of what's happening now.
Prophesied.
Thank you.
Prophesied.
Thank you.
So he talks about
Yeah.
this new state, I guess, arising from
You don't
rot
bite me.
of a previous state. And is that necessary? Do we not want to build on what we already have? Do you have to throw away what you started with?
Okay, that's why I said this passage is more scary than the previous one, because the previous one was saying in our prior state of emunah, which in this translation of this paragraph, she called it this form of emunah. Rav Kook calls it, I have the Hebrew here, he calls it hatzura chitzona, the external form of emunah. I would use the word form of emunah. There was
Maybe
a positive
expression,
part of
maybe
it.
expression. Maybe
Sorry?
expression maybe would be
Okay, but she uses the word she uses the word form, so let's stick with that for now. There was a kernel, or more than a kernel. There was a part which is proper, and all kinds of mistakes that were stuck onto it, all kinds of mud that got stuck onto it, and the chutzpah is, as I compared in the past, to a stream of water, a hose with a strong stream of water that's cleaning the true emunah from the dirt that is stuck onto it. When we see that happening, we got used to the emunah, we got used to the gold, the piece of gold with the mud stuck onto it, to the diamond with the mud stuck onto it. So when it's changing, we think emunah is falling apart. And Rav Kook said, but emunah is really becoming more clean and pure. Here he's saying something which is much more extreme. It's saying that the former form of emunah, the previous form of emunah, is like a seed. It has to rot, decompose, and that frees a very powerful force of life and fruitfulness and brings about a new form of emunah. And that new form of emunah is going to be so different that it's going to enable us to achieve prophecy. So yes, it's a much more extreme process. I don't think that it means we have to totally rid ourselves of everything that it was emunah before, but yes, it is a much more it's a much more high energy change in our perception of emunah.
Okay. It does occur to me that it's probably much more difficult to do that as we get older, that you've got a much thicker crust of previous assumptions and what you think is true. And
I will be a Breslover. For that, I will be a Breslover. Reb Nachman says, Asur liot zaken. Asur liot chasid zaken. Always be, and Reb Nachman said, if your emunah today, you wake up in the morning and you believe in God, because, well, yesterday I believed in God, then he says that's worth nothing. You have to believe in God anew every day, and so on. And prayer has to be new every day. So, but of course you're right, and it becomes more difficult. But I would say it's also it's an ongoing generational process. I don't think HaRav Kook expected it to end before the end of his life. Maybe he wrote this paragraph in the first decade of the 20th century, which was more than 110 years ago. But I don't think he expected it to fill its course during his life. But I think we all take a part in this process. So even at whatever our ages are, take the average of the ages of those present, even at this ripe age, not to say old age, but ripe age, we can still have an effect. We can still influence. How do we react to people who express chutzpah about emunah, heresy, questions about emunah, to our children, to our grandchildren, to people around us? Do we spread the word that it can be a positive process of growth, and that will sift down to our children, to our grandchildren, and maybe one of them will be a great rabbi and philosopher and help us along in this process. So I believe that we have a role in the process, even if it won't be complete for me as an individual or in my lifetime.
Baby.
And even if I can't understand it fully, but I can be a participant in the process. But just by having a positive and more gentle attitude to the fact that there is a positive process going on, and not just we're going backwards. In the past we had emunah, and now we've lost it. No, we're moving forward. We're refining our emunah. We're enabling something old it's filled its course. It's not what's relevant for today's world, and we're enabling it to become fruitful and bring about a new form of emunah that will be better for the next generations and bring us to higher spiritual levels. No, I'm sorry, I can't explain all the details. I don't understand all of it myself, but I believe that that's a possibility. Why don't you look into that possibility? So I believe in that. In this way, we can be a positive force in this issue. Eliezer.
First of all, the part of this, it's incredible that we thought about this in the 1920s, the 1910s.
First decade of the 20th century, yes.
Absolutely incredible.
Eliezer is saying that it's incredible that HaRav Kook thought about this more than 110 years ago, yes.
But first of all, I have a big reservation, which is that you can't, this is very powerful and very dangerous.
Yes, I said that. It's very powerful and therefore very dangerous, yes.
But when people pass aside the boundaries of which it is in this style. I mean, there's that side of it, and am I allowed to bring in politics?
No.
But
Sorry.
it's very. There's a lot to be thought of.
Yes, it can result in anarchism. It can be, oh, we're so spiritual and we create anarchy. I understand that. It's part of the danger. But if we remember what HaRav Kook said in previous shiurim, he said that the forms that we create are like the garments of the king. It's not the king, but the king needs garments. Religion, society, morality, all need frameworks. We need the frameworks. On the one hand, the frameworks are important. Make sure to keep them in place. On the other hand, don't think that they are God, because that's going to become idol worshiping. Always think of the frameworks of our thoughts, the forms of emunah that we create. Understand that they are a bridge that helps us, that help us. They are bridges that help us connect to God, who is greater than our ability of forming it truly in our mind. And on the other hand, he said, never cause direct damage to these frameworks. Sometimes, I would say, sometimes it's necessary to take apart something old and build something new. And we're afraid to do it. And we're stuck with something, oh, that's not going to work. And if we don't take apart the old, the new generation, we're going to lose them. And we're afraid to do it. And then comes along the younger generation with their chutzpah, and they force us to bring about something new. And if we had done it on our own accord, if we had initiated it, the pains of these pangs of growth would have been less painful. But in any case, it's going to be this process of growth, and it's going to include pain.
I want to today, I was
Oh, Biden.
at a shiva of somebody who passed away a month before he was 90. And it was a beautiful positive example of this. He was a wonderful person, but his life was over. He was, his pulse went down, all his life processes, but his children and his grandchildren are bursting through
Okay.
and
he enabled that. He created a platform for that to happen. And as I was saying, that he was at a shiva of a person who passed away just before 90, and he had lost his powers of life, but his children and grandchildren are thriving on a platform that he created for them. I think this is our responsibility to try, not only as family, as Jews in general, to create a platform for the next generations to continue.
the other thing I just wanted to, I think the emphasis has to be on looking for the light of creation, the light in the world that is part of creation.
Yes.
And that's
Okay. To continue the light of creation and seeing the blessing of creation in everything. Sorry?
look for it.
To look for it, to bring it to light, to shine a light upon lights of creation that we still see happening in the world. Whether it's in morality or in science and religion, there's still creation that's happening in the world, and that we have to show that beauty. Thank you. I'd like to add another paragraph. I prepared two. I'm not going to have time to see both of them, but let's choose one of them, which I think is very interesting. Of course, you can keep the second one as well. And this I can share more easily. 1 second. Three. It's last week. Here we are. Okay. So we have here the source. It's in HaRav Kook's notebooks. It's called Notebook A, Kovetz Aleph, 327. As I've said in the past, it's just numbers. He wrote extensively, very intense, paragraph after paragraph. So Notebook A, paragraph 327, part of thousands of paragraphs that HaRav Kook wrote, and he says the following. The opening is very powerful and maybe
Excuse me, maybe you can make it a little bit smaller so we can see it. We don't see the beginning of it on the page.
I do.
you don't see the beginning of it.
I don't see the beginning. I say something, there's a word missing before, lacks any connection.
Oh, really? Other people also?
I see it fine.
Yes, I see it.
No, we see it.
I see it, but there's no beginning.
Yes, there is.
Sorry.
The heretic is how it starts on.
I see
And
here,
it starts with the word, the words, the heretic.
there's
Yeah.
another word before the heretic.
Let me try 1 second.
Just make it smaller.
1 second. I don't think making it smaller
No?
will help. I think it will just be smaller letters and it won't make a difference. But I'm willing to try. Let's see. Tell me if this made any difference. I think it's just going to make it smaller for everybody.
Let's
Is this
see.
any better?
Yes, thank you.
Is it too small for others or is it okay?
No, it's fine.
That's fine, it's good.
Okay, here we go. The heretic who lacks any connection to the divine truly lacks the form of a human being, and the purpose of his life is not that of a human life at all. All of his emotions are purely animalistic, and even if he is a person full of knowledge and wisdom and appears to be moral and upright, he is no more than a trained and cultured animal. The spirit of man in the depth of its essence is only truly alive when it is connected to the supreme divine matter. Wow. Maybe we didn't expect HaRav Kook to be saying this. Sounds extreme, sounds very negative. For someone who lacks connection to the divine can be a good person, a moral person, a very wise scientist, etc., etc. But he's just a trained and cultured animal. Before we try to explain it, let's continue, because I think putting the different paragraphs together will give us the full message. However, the more human understanding becomes clarified, the more absolute heresy diminishes and its power weakens. Therefore, there are many heretics who are considered deniers according to the letter of halakha, but when we probe the depths of their soul, we discover within them a hidden connection to the divine content. For this reason, there is a great tendency in our generations toward merit and kindness, even for those who are complete heretics. So in the second paragraph, HaRav Kook says, however, the more human understanding becomes clarified. In the past, we thought that we know God. And so some people thought they know God, and other people denied knowing God. So they were heretics. Says HaRav Kook, our understanding grows, our understanding is more clear, and our understanding that we don't absolutely know God is better. We even live after Kant, who, says we're not really talking about anything absolute. We're just talking about what we perceive. So this is what I perceive is not total heresy. If I don't perceive a God, I didn't say I'm an absolute heretic. I said I don't perceive God. Maybe that's what I perceive. I don't perceive. So it weakens the power of heresy. Because if I don't absolutely know God, I don't absolutely deny God if what I understand is what I perceive. And it doesn't mean that this is absolute, then the power of heresy weakens. Therefore, there are many people who, according to the strict letter, the dry letter of halakha, might be considered deniers, heretics. But in the depths of their soul, we discover that within them a hidden connection to the divine content. They believe in values. They believe that it's important, that values are important, that saving lives is important, that they're willing to sacrifice themselves for other people. It's not the kind of heresy where people say, I don't believe in God, therefore I don't care about anything. I don't care about values. I'm only going to live for myself. There's something subtle, something hidden within them, something maybe we can't see. We need to probe into the depths of their soul. And maybe then we will discover within them, not in their intellect. In their intellect, maybe they say, I don't perceive a God. But maybe deeper in their soul, we find within them a hidden connection to the divine content. And therefore, in the last lines, in our generations, our tendency has grown in being more kind and gentle and ascribing merit to even those people who consider themselves, or we consider them, complete heretics. Because are they really heretics? is there really complete heresy in the world? So on the one hand, he's saying that I think what he's saying is not about individuals. I see a person who doesn't wear a kippah and doesn't keep Shabbat, and therefore he's a heretic, and he does all kinds of positive things in his life, and I say he's just a cultured animal. I don't think that's what HaRav Kook is saying.
No.
I think he's saying theologically, if a person could live without God, without the divine, then even if he was very developed, he would just be a cultured animal. Because the spirit of man in the depth of its essence, not in the way a person appears in the world, in its essence, it's only truly alive when it's connected to the supreme divine matter. Because without supreme divine matter, what are we? Just blobs of matter who happen to have some chemicals connections in our brains. But in the true deeper understanding of humanism, and in the developing understanding of our intellectual abilities, it's become more and more clear to us that our knowledge is not absolute. So what we know about God is not absolute. So heresy is not absolute. So let's be a little more delicate towards people who present themselves, or who we think of as complete heretics, that maybe it's not so complete, and maybe there's something divine hidden there within their outer expression of heresy. And just like in the process of chutzpah, that seems to be wiping out certain forms of emunah, or negating and being against, powerfully acting against certain forms of emunah, within that process there is a potential for something which is cleansing emunah and enabling a new birth of emunah. In the same way, those individuals who are part of that process, who seem to be expressing themselves, presenting themselves as heretics, maybe what they're doing is not so absolutely heresy. Maybe it's part of a deeper and loftier process that we are all part of. And so let's attribute more merit and act with more kindness even towards those who present themselves, or we think of them, as complete heretics. Let's see if anyone wants to say something about that before we depart for tonight.
This is amazing stuff, because if you think of all the different ways that we worship and the different ways that we believe in, this is going to undermine a lot of people's thinking. Everything is, the way they think and the way they perceive God is totally different from what we just read. It's, how do we work it out?
But it's happening around us or within us, in our homes, in
I agree,
our communities, whether we like it or not. And
but
therefore, it's happening whether we like it or not. And therefore, I understand we don't have to, as old and mature as we are, we don't have to start from scratch and say, well, everything I learned until now was nothing, I'm going to start anew. I'm going to be a chassid lo zaken, as Rabbi Nachman would say. We don't really have to start from scratch, but we can have a more delicate approach, a more soft approach, and even a more positive approach towards these processes having potential for bringing about something new which can be positive. I think even that is enough for us to take from here to be part of something that we can help it be positive in the growth of humanity and the growth of, and the processes of growth of Am Yisrael. I don't see us becoming prophets tomorrow morning or tonight when we have dreams in our sleep. It's going to be God giving us prophecies, but don't give up on it. Maybe one of our children or grandchildren will grow and be a prophet. Who knows?
very interesting. Okay.
Michael.
Quick comment, or maybe a topic for the future. Because I agree with you that, things seem to be changing, and they're changing even rapidly. And I wonder how much we're all going to be affected by this pressure cooker of anti-Semitism that we are suddenly living in. And I mean, we are seeing people that are reconnecting and trying to learn more just because they feel that they have to.
Yeah.
And if we're going to see somebody that's already further down that developmental road, that under that pressure, you know, you really do see the burst of creative energy come out because of that. You know, we're living in very remarkable times.
Interesting comparison. Thank you. Okay, 1 second, please. Erev Tov.